Did you do any grocery shopping this weekend? How much higher were the prices than usual? A lot of basic items are increasingly expensive. Chicken, bread, eggs, and the list kind of goes on and on. Inflation's one cause. The war in Ukraine is also a major factor. According to the International Food Policy Research Institute, Russia and Ukraine export 12% of the world's food calories. Those exports include wheat, corn, and barley. 12% of the world's calories come from Russia and Ukraine. Now, this war has turned farmlands into battlefields. And in a moment, we'll hear how the World Food Program hopes to address this crisis. But let's start in Ukraine with a feature report from NBC foreign correspondent Matt Bradley.
Here in Zaporizhia, Ukraine, farming is a frontline job. It's why Yuri wears body armor and sometimes comes across missiles in his fields.
Do you ever think this job isn't worth it? I'm going to just quit.
I need to work. There are guys fighting in the war, and I'm fighting here in the fields.
Ukraine has been called the breadbasket of Europe. More than 70% of the country is made up of rich agricultural land. Last year alone, Ukraine earned $28 billion from agriculture, exporting vital crops to not just Europe, but the world. Along with Russia, the two countries account for almost 30% of global wheat exports, almost 20% of corn exports, and more than 80% of the world's supply of sunflower oil. Now, the whole world is literally paying the price for this war.
It's not just a military war, it's also an economic war, because the world depended on Ukrainian produce. So now Russia creates problems not only for Ukraine, but also for the whole world.
Farmer Roman Tarasevich estimates that about 80% of the farmland here in Zaporizhia is either occupied by Russian forces or too dangerous to till. But he's among the lucky ones. Even though he says his farm is less than 20 miles from the front lines, he can still plant most of his fields. It's a risk. Rockets have struck his land, but Tarasevich's real problem is what to do with his sunflower harvest. Long a bright symbol of Ukraine, sunflowers have become an agricultural casualty of war. There's a global shortage of sunflower oil because all the sunflower seeds are stuck here, stranded by the war. Ukraine is the world's largest sunflower seed exporter, and prices have surged more than 58% for consumers and restaurateurs. Supermarkets are rationing sunflower oil sales in the UK, Spain, Italy, and Greece. At this time last year, this warehouse was empty. Why can't you get this stock to foreign markets?
Before the war, we were exporting through the ports, and we can't do that right now because of the war.
Russia has blockaded Ukrainian ports, and shipping insurance is sky high, holding a large amount of grain hostage. How has the war affected your business?
We used to have a plan to grow, but for now, we're just working any way we can.
Tarasevich's financial misery has plenty of company around the world. Recently, the World Food Program, the food assistance branch of the UN, has issued calls to reopen Ukraine's ports. Their ask? Open the ports before the current global hunger crisis spins out of control. Food policy experts around the world are sounding the alarm as well. Jada Doyen McKenna is the CEO of the global relief organization Mercy Corps. She's spent more than a decade working to end world hunger.
Russia has basically turned a breadbasket into a war zone. A lot of the men that would be harvesting the grain or things from the crops in the ground or replanting crops are now on the front lines fighting a war. So this situation just compounds itself to be catastrophic.
While Ukraine is the breadbasket of Europe, Russia is the world's largest exporter of fertilizer. Ever since the war began, the country has halted fertilizer exports, affecting farmers in Brazil, India, and the United States.
We're looking at multiple-year disruptions in the food supply system because of the threat under the ports and things not getting out of Ukraine and fertilizer supply. I'm quite worried that the war in Ukraine is going to lead to many more unnecessary deaths.
Agriculture ministers of the G7 nations met in Germany over the weekend to discuss global solutions.
We know now that millions of tons of grains are now stuck in silos across Ukraine. We need to make sure that these cereals are sent to the world. If not, millions of people will be facing famine, particularly in the Middle East and Africa.
Meanwhile, over in Ukraine, Farmers like Yuri and Roman continue to do their jobs, despite the risks.
Is there an issue with the fact that you're doing all this farming and it doesn't feel like a lot of this stuff is going to be able to be exported?
We need to continue our work, because if we stop, there'll be no food.
A food fight that extends far beyond Ukraine's borders.
That was NBC's Matt Bradley reporting. Let's continue now with Barron Segar, President and CEO of the World Food Program USA. Mr. Segar, welcome to the program. Good to have you with us.
Joshua, thanks for putting the spotlight on hunger tonight.
Well, you saw where Matt Bradley put at least part of that spotlight. Is that what has you most concerned tonight, or are there other parts of this issue, other parts of the world that also have the World Food Program most concerned?
I think that we're concerned because we have 48.9 million people on the brink of starvation. And we're seeing consequences that we've not seen in one's lifetime. The panelists before you mentioned consequences. And I would tell you right now that if the ports do not open, up to 50 million people will face hunger in the coming months if grain is not released. That is a devastating consequence.
With regard to those ports, we're talking about ports in Ukraine, on the Black Sea, on the Sea of Azov, near cities like Odessa and Mariupol and others, where a tremendous number of imports come up through the south of Ukraine to not only feed Ukrainians, but also to allow them to continue to feed the rest of Europe. Has your organization been able to have any contact with the Russian government or the Ukrainian government? Have you been on the ground trying to help convince the two sides to make things happen, particularly convince the Russian side to reopen the ports? How has that gone?
So what I would say is we're calling on all global leaders, particularly in the United States, calling on our senators to please pass legislation that will give the World Food Program more funding to purchase more food. We're calling on world leaders. Listen, the seas of Odessa must open. We right now have 14 million metric tons of wheat and 16 metric tons of corn that are sitting there ready to be exported. And as one of your guests previously said, these have historically been transferred by cargo ships. Again, before the conflict, just think about it, 98% of the grain went through the sea. And you may think to yourself, well, let's just put it on a train or put it through trucks. It doesn't work because of the infrastructure. You'd have to disembark and restore the grain if you went on trains. And so the most efficient, the only way of getting this grain to countries that desperately need it to avoid famine and hunger is to put it on these cargo ships.
Well, with regards to grain reserves, India today banned wheat exports, most of them anyway, and India has 10% of the world's grain reserves. So is that a sign that countries are kind of retrenching, that they're sort of holding on to what they have because they see that this problem isn't going to resolve itself anytime soon? What does that tell you?
It's interesting, Joshua. I would go back to when I remember when COVID started, and we had certain countries that were thinking about not exporting rice, a staple that is used by many countries, particularly countries that are landlocked. However, these countries ultimately made the right decision that free trade ultimately helps everybody. I think it's, there's caution. A lot of countries are certainly worried about their own citizens, their own supplies. But I would say that for the World Food Program, we are urging countries to please open up your borders and provide free trade, provide grains, because it is needed, and we need an open market to get it to those countries where it is needed most. Again, we saw it. We were scared when COVID first struck. We saw countries pulling back on exports. However, we did see that ultimately they exported rice and other materials, and look, it worked out fine.
Do you get the sense that world governments are really interested in doing that? I mean, there's all kinds of issues with import, export, with tariffs, duties, international arrangements. We heard this weekend from Britain's Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, about the deal with Northern Ireland and how they might have to find some workarounds because they don't want to have that turn into a hard border. That would be a crisis. So it feels like different countries have so much to worry about with import and export and trade and border issues right now. And everyone just seems a little freaked out. Do you think that the world is ready to take on this challenge? We have to, but are world leaders up to that right now? Are they listening for that right now?
So, Joshua, I would tell you, and I feel very confident about this, and that world leaders are not going to sit around while people starve to death. I truly, honestly believe that. There are consequences to this war unlike no other. Even just today, by the way, on the open markets, we saw grain prices in the U.S. on the exchanges going up by over 5%. So again, we're going to see massive human suffering. And so two things. I have a lot of confidence that world leaders are not going to allow this suffering to take place. The second thing is, don't forget, when people have a lack of food, it causes war. So lack of food is a reason that countries go to war. So when there is food, there tends to be more stability around the world, and that is very important today. All indications are right now, everybody around the world, whether you're a politician or you're having dinner at home right now, everybody understands that food is a non-partisan event, and everybody has a right to food. It is not partisan. Doesn't matter where you are. Food is a human right, and I believe that wherever you are around this world, that we are all in agreement that nobody should die of famine.
And briefly, before I have to let you go, the Secretary of State Antony Blinken is going to speak to the UN Security Council on Wednesday about food insecurity. Suppose the war ended tonight and we could start restarting these pipelines right away. What's that timeline look like in terms of getting the world's food supply back to some semblance of normal? Briefly, before I got to let you go, what's that timeline like?
So, Joshua, what I would tell you, I do think it's a couple of years before it is put back to normal. However, we believe that 50% of the crops in Ukraine could still be harvested. And we think if countries open up their borders, that will allow us to get wheat, corn where it's needed most. So again, my answer to you, if everything opened up tomorrow, we would save a heck of a lot of lives.
Gotcha. 50% that could still be harvested. That is a hopeful number. That is if the war can be ended soon. Barron Segar, the president and CEO of World Food Program USA. This is super helpful. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Joshua.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.